So, on to today's topic. We're going to be working on a little bit of nodes, UI, signals, and scene composition. I wanted to do a little bit more of a Godot editor video. This is going to be less code-based. It's going to be more so UI and working with Godot and how it handles its nodes and scenes. So, first of all, the main thing we're going to create today is a main menu. But before we do that, I want to walk everyone through the nodes and the node system and what that means. So every object in Godot is essentially a node, and there are many different kinds of nodes. So the base node is just called node. There are 3D nodes, 2D nodes, control nodes, which is UI based, a whole bunch of nodes we can see on this screen, and if we open up, you can see even more. The scene tree is essentially a hierarchy of nodes, and a scene is a saved subtree of nodes with a single root node. Godot only runs one active tree at a time, so you can't have multiple scene trees running at the same time, but scenes can be inside other scenes, so you can nest scenes within scenes. Each node has a type, it has a name, and the color of the node kind of tells you what the parent type is. So all the control nodes are green, all the node 2Ds are blue. The scene tree also determines what order the processing is done. So on the root node, it processes first, then any children of the root node goes second, and then further down each level processes next and next. It's kind of like a breadth first search. I've got a little picture on there on the side to kind of illustrate that. But that's kind of the processing order, if you're interested. Nodes can be added, removed, and rearranged at runtime with three main things. Add child, which adds a child to whatever node this script is on. Remove child, same thing, just in reverse, it removes the child. And queue_free, which deletes the current node. There's also a different version of queue_free called free that pretty much just deletes it instantly. I wouldn't recommend doing that because it has some problems with like race conditions and deletes data prematurely without waiting when it's ready. And then finally, getTree gives access to whoever called it the scene tree. So the main nodes I do want to cover, and the ones that you'll probably use the most often, are going to be your base nodes like node 2D, and node 3D. So if you have a 3D scene and you want to have, let's say we have a 3D scene here, let's add a node 3D, and it takes you straight to the 3D viewport. Any child of the node 3D, I would recommend using one of these red nodes. So let's say I have an item I want to display. And then under the item, I need a mesh, so we can search up mesh instance 3D. And then as a child of the node 3D, we can have a collision polygon 3D or collision shape 3D. I'm going to choose collision shape 3D just because it's a little bit easier to set up. In the shape, we can choose any sort of random shape here. So I'm going to choose a box, and you can see there is an outline of a box here. It's like slightly blue. That's going to be what everything else in the scene collides with, the blue box. And then your mesh instance 3D is what you're going to see, what the graphics is going to render. And then just to match that, we're going to choose a box. So that's a really simple 3D instance that you might make. I'm just going to discard that one because it was just an example. Today, since we're working with our 2D project, we're going to create a 2D scene, and we're going to go over to new scene at the top, and we're creating a main menu. So we can go to click on other node. For your root node of any sort of scene like a main menu, I would just choose the base class node, because some main menus might have some 3D elements in it. They will have definitely 2D elements in it. So you want to kind of cover your bases by adding a root node that is just the base class node. And then underneath it, you can add more specific types. So first type we're going to cover as well in this main menu scene is the control node. So control nodes are used for any sort of 2D user interface, stuff like that. And you can see just above it, it inherits from canvas items. So control and node 2D are both 2D nodes. The one on the bottom is more so for a game object rather than a UI element. So just note the difference between those two. Just before we add a control node, what we have to do is add what we can do is we can add a canvas layer. This is really useful if you're making HUDs. So you have 3D elements and 2D elements. A canvas layer will pretty much render over whatever 3D scene you have. It depends what type of main menu you guys are going to make, but if you want just a 2D main menu, then you don't have to add a canvas layer. If you want elements of 3D and 2D, then you should add a canvas layer. For now, we're just doing 2D. Just thought I'd mention that in case anyone wanted to do something different. And then we can just, I went over here, changed the anchor preset and just set it to full. So these are all templates for the anchors. Anchors, what they do with the control node is they essentially mean whatever size your screen is, it will try and set the node to be the same position relative to the anchors. So for instance, a full anchor, this node is always going to take up the whole screen. If we do a left anchor, then the child node is always going to be on the left side of the screen only. So no matter how big your screen is, and then same with center. So there's a lot of really useful things you can do with the anchors. But yeah, for now, we're just going to create a full rect anchor. As a child of the control, if we think about a main menu, we need at least 3 elements. That's just like your base thing. One thing is going to be your title of your game. Another thing is going to be your play button. And then the last thing is, I mean, this could be arguable. You could either have a quit button or you could have an options button. A lot of the times you're going to have both. So those are just really basic things. If you want to add any sort of text, what we can go over and do is add a label node. It's going to render text onto the screen. And let's just name our game here. So we're going to say my first game. Okay, this is not very big. In fact, it's like really hard to read. You have to zoom in a lot. So if you want to change the font, the size, anything about these control nodes, we have to scroll over in the panel over on the right, the inspector panel, and then we can choose a theme, or we can just override the theme in the inspector. If you're making a large game, definitely create a theme earlier on, and then you can use that same theme and reuse that same theme for different labels and different elements. So if we choose a new theme over here and select theme, and then it gives us a panel where we can change some stuff. So right now our type is none. We're not really going to change anything. So we can click that add over there. Search up label again, double click, and then now we have access to change all of these label settings. So I don't have any fonts installed, but what we can change right now is the font size. Make sure to click the plus, and then we can change it to something like 36. Now it is a lot bigger, maybe even a little bit bigger for a menu, something like 60. Yeah, we're really getting a good scale of things here. I've really underestimated it. Yeah, so 120 seems to be pretty big. And what we can do with the label now is we can just position it accordingly. Depending on whether you want your name to be in the center or aligned to the top left, you can change the anchor presets to either top left, top center, top right, whatever you would like. So for me, I want it to be middle center. And then I'm just going to add a little bit of padding or a little bit of space between the top here. Just drag it down. So if you want it to, if you're dragging a node and you want it to stay in the center or stay moving along one axis and one axis only, what you can do like this is just hold shift while you drag it, and it's just going to snap it to only one axis of movement. Really useful for if you want to keep things centered, not like that. Okay, we also need to add some buttons. So those are also types that we can search up. Just regular buttons. You can see there's a whole lot of different types of buttons there, but for now we can just add a regular old button, and then we'll just name this one play. Before we add the quit one, I do want to set this play button up. So this is also very small. What we can do, same as the label, we can hit plus, go to button, click on that, and then now we can change some of the button settings. So I want to increase the font size again. Maybe, I mean, obviously not as big as the title, but something like maybe 36 will do. And we can see if that add. Oh yeah. Reason why you're not seeing anything, I forgot to do something first. Forgot to set the theme. So that theme before on the label, we didn't save it. So what I would consider you guys to do is go over to this label, hit the theme, hit that drop down, and then save or save as you can choose where you want to save it. So maybe we'll just go in the assets and then we'll just name it. Now what we can do is we can go back to the button and we can either just drag the ourTheme.trace from the side into the theme property, or we can just quick load and then it will just give you the our theme there. So now our button's a bit bigger. You can even increase it even more if you wish. But yeah, that's good. You can change a whole bunch of other stuff with the theme. Definitely mess around with it if you want to have a look. But yeah, you can change the color, the shape of the button, everything. For now, we're just going to leave it as its base type. So now we've got our play. I've just anchored it to the bottom left, like what we were doing before. We can change where it's anchored to if you guys wish. And we're going to drag it a little bit higher like this. Okay, so that's our play button. What we can do over here in the node scene section is I'm going to rename the node to play just to make sense. And then I just hit Control D to duplicate the node. And then we can name this quit. And we can change the text of it to quit as well. Now with this one, we are going to just drag it down a little bit. And again, holding the shift. And that is our two main buttons. Now they are pretty small, so we can also drag one of the corners or one of the edges, make it a little bit bigger. There are a heap of properties in the in this button here that you can change. So say if you want the alignment of the text to be left, you can change that too. If you want it to be center, everything can be customized. But that is our buttons and our text for the game. Now what we can do is we can remove this really ugly gray color because we don't usually want the users to look at it. You can either just have a solid color background or you can have an image. Both is fine. For the image, we kind of did this before, but this time we're going to have it as a UI texture rect instead of a sprite. Let's set the size to be the full thing, and then we're going to drag over whatever your background image is. In this case, let's do our bkg.png, have that in our texture property. Cool. You notice that it's not actually the size of the screen anymore. We can change the expand mode to any one of these. Ignore size is usually pretty good because then it just shrinks it to whatever the width and height is, and then we can scale it, or we can tile or keep centered. I like doing keep aspect centered. It just means that if it goes bigger than the size, then it will actually grow and keep it centered. If you don't like how the left and right isn't colored, you can do keep aspect covered, and that just does that. Actually going to do keep aspect covered. I like that one a bit more. If you just want a solid color, what we can do is we can add a color rect. So there are a heap of nodes, and I wouldn't expect everyone to know what every single node does, but I'm just going to show a couple of common ones first, and then you guys can decide which ones you want to add. So if we want our color rect to have a certain color, we can change it over here into RGB properties. I actually want mine to be kind of transparent, so I'm going to make like maybe a bluish white color, and then just have it semi-transparent so you can see the background. When you add these by default, they're just going to add it on top of whatever you've already had. Obviously for a background, we want that to be behind everything, so we can drag it to the top. Everything at the top is going to be rendered behind everything. So it's a little bit backwards. That really trips me up a lot of the time. All right, one more thing I want to do just to our main menu is make this a little bit more readable, so we can change the font outline color. Let's do that. Let's click plus next to font outline color, and then over here in the constants, we can change the outline size. So that's going to make our outline look visible. Maybe something like 12 will be legible. Oh, this is for the button. Probably seeing it. Yeah, we're seeing it display there, not for the actual label. I forgot to change the type. Alright, but that's fine. We can just do the same thing for the label. Scroll over to outline size here, and then let's just change that to 12 again. And okay, now we have an outline. Again, you can change whatever properties you would like. But yeah, this is our main scene. What we can do now is we can save our scene. I'm gonna put it in our scenes folder from last time. Okay, to see the main menu, we're not gonna actually see it first because we already have a main scene defined. What you can do over here is you can right click and then you can hit set as main scene. So now whenever you hit play, it's just gonna go to this main scene now. If I click play or quit, nothing actually happens because we haven't configured the play or quit buttons. So that's what we're going to do next. The main way you do this in Godot is you use signals. So there are a bunch of signals depending on what happens with the button. So button pressed is going to be your main thing you want on a button. So let's double click that, and it says scene does not have any script. So what we can do to the scene is we need a script. Usually you'd have this on your root node because again it does processing before any other node, and also if you have multiple different elements in your main scene, you usually want to refer back to a root global node. When things get a little bit more complicated though is when you have a big playing scene. You don't want everything to be in just one root node, so you want to split things up, but for a main menu this is pretty ideal. So we'll go over here to scripts and then select open. We'll just create a new script for the main menu. Then what we can do is we can go back to play, double click press and then click connect, and it's going to automatically come up here. We'll do the same thing for quit. We'll double click pressed, click connect, and then they're both pretty much going to automatically add themselves to that script. Okay. To actually change scenes and to quit the scene, there are a few things that you can do. For the on quit pressed, to actually quit the scene, we can do get tree, which returns the scene tree, the current scene tree. In this case, it will be itself, the node. And then what we can do is get tree.quit. So easy enough. This is really, really simple whenever you want to quit the game. On play pressed is going to be a little bit different because we actually need to know what scene we're changing into. Luckily for us, we only have two scenes. So what we can do instead, our world.tscn is going to be whatever scene we want to change to. If we just drag and drop, we can see it gives us the path to it. However, if we drag, hold control and then drop, it creates a node for us automatically. So it's not using the actual scene path, it's using the UID. If you want the scene path, you can do the same thing, but instead of holding control, you can hold control and shift, so both at the same time. They're just going to be the same thing, but one is just a little bit easier to read than the other. I'm going to statically type that by having a colon there, but you don't have to add that. To actually change to a certain scene, what we can do again is get tree, and then dot change scene to... Okay, there are three different types of things here. The way I've set it up is it's going to be change scene to packed because the world variable at the top is currently a packed scene. Whenever you call preload, it packs it into a single scene. You can see there. If you just want to have just the string name here, what we can do here is change scene to file and then select world.tscn. The reason why I didn't do that and I prefer change scene to packed is because using preload is slightly more performant than changing scene to a file. Preload essentially, whenever you run the project, it loads it before anything else comes on screen. So there's no frame glitches when you're changing scenes, and it's a little bit less laggy. So we'll just do that, and then we'll put in world. Those are the only two things you need for the main menu, at least for now. Let's say we have an options menu, then you just do the same thing, just with the options scene. But now if we run it, and we can test both, we can quit, and it quits the game really quickly. We can click play, and now we're back in our world scene, doing what we had last tutorial, all of these nodes running around. So signals are actually really, really useful. This is kind of the tip of the signal iceberg, but what I want to do is go a little bit deeper. So we can connect signals not only through the UI but through code as well. So let's say I want to connect a signal in code. Let's delete this on play pressed, or we can comment it out for now. And we're going to try and connect it. So we can have a ready function and a ready void, and we'll go over to play and just disconnect this signal. To connect a signal in code, what we need first is we need the node that we want to connect. So again, I'm going to drag the node over into the code panel, hold control. What that does is, again, it just creates an onReady variable. We can reference this node here in the ready by going play dot pressed, so the signal name, and then dot connect. And then we need to connect it to a function name. That's what a call is. So our function, we can say func on play pressed. It's going to be the same name as our other function, but I would say try and keep this format the same. Underscore on, underscore the node name, and then underscore the signal name. I'm just going to type this out manually. And then we're going to I can copy and paste this same line from before, and I'm going to put it in here just a bit quicker. All right, so now it's giving us an error because we haven't given up the callable. And then over here, we can just do underscore on play pressed, hit tab to complete that. And that is how you connect something with code. It's a little bit longer, but it works better if you don't know what the node is yet and you have it as a variable. So they're still really useful, probably just not for this situation. There's one more thing about signals that I did want to mention, and it is called custom signals. So you can, not only can you use any one of these signals on the side, you can define your own ones. So to do that, you need to come over to the top of the node and go signal, and then the name of the signal. So for our main menu, transition maybe. If we want to set up like a scene transition whenever you click a button. So we'll just do scene transition. And then if you need arguments in them, you can actually add them in the brackets. So if it's like an enemy and you want to say that you've been hit, then you could have like your hit points or whatever. But in this case, we don't actually need anything here. What you can do with this signal is you can emit it whenever something happens. So when players press, we're going to emit the transition signal. So we can go transition dot emit. And that's all you need. So again, like what we were talking about before, if you have any arguments, you'd put it in the emit function, but we don't have any arguments. Now what we can do with this transition is, it's not actually going to do anything right now, but in the world, in any other node, what we can do is we can listen for this signal. It's going to be a little bit harder in this case, to listen to a signal because we're changing scenes right after we emit the signal. But let's just say we have maybe like another test node. We can just have this here, and we can add a testing script just for demonstration purposes. We can just call it testing signals.gd. We can create that. So to listen to any signal, what we need first is we need, again, the name of the node. We're going to do what we did for the menu. So on ready, what we can do is we need what node we're listening for. So in this case, it is actually the parent. We can do get parent. We need to save this as a variable. So we'll go var keyword before that. Parent equals get parent. So one thing I would really recommend you guys do is whenever you create a script or a node, whenever you create a script, go up to the top of the script and give it a name. So we can do that by calling class name. And then I'm going to call it main menu. So whenever you reference this, what you can do is when you come up to statically typing the parent, you can do colon main menu equals get parent, because the node's parent is always going to be this main menu node here. So what we can do now is we go parent.transition, and you can see there, if we didn't do that colon main menu, if I just really quickly delete it and just do colon equals parent dot, the transition doesn't show up because it doesn't know what type it is. So if we go back, put in the main menu, now anything main menu related, like on play pressed, on quit pressed, is dot world. Anything defined in there is going to come up here, so definitely do that. It's really good for autocomplete. But yeah, we can do parent.transition.connect, like what we did before, and we need a callable for it. So let's create a callable. In this case, I'm going to say on main menu transition. And then that doesn't require any arguments, and it's going to output void. I'm just going to do a simple print here, just to illustrate that it's working. Transition. And if we go back up, we can just do on main menu transition. Okay, so this is how you do custom signals. So if I go back here to play, and let me just make this a little bit smaller, so we can see the bottom here. We click play, you can see at the bottom transition printed out. Instead of just printing it out, what you would normally do is you would have some sort of wipe effect or some transition effect, fade in, fade out, crossfade, whatever you want to do instead of that, but that is your template for creating a level transition. You can also disconnect from signals, so same thing. If you wanted to say stop listening to maybe a player is outputting a signal saying it's getting hit, you can also call .disconnect. Signals are really powerful because instead of using really long chains of node references, like direct node references in your scene tree, what you can do is you can listen to a global signal and then do something based on that. It is a lot cleaner code-wise and also optimization-wise. It is faster than keeping lots of references. When you make your project, the scene tree often can get really large, so it also helps if you, say, rename a node, then your whole thing will break. But if you just connect a signal, then it won't. So one last thing that I also wanted to talk about before we finish up is scenes. So we have 2 scenes right now, but what you can do is you can reuse, say, the same scene over and over again. If this was, instead of a main menu, maybe it was a pause menu and you wanted to keep it in all of your world scenes, you could create a scene and then just instantiate that in. In this case, a really good candidate for creating a scene would be our characters. So our rigid body 2D is a certain type of player. So we're gonna come over there, right click, and then we can click save branches scene here. And then we can name our scene. So let's say it's a rigid body, so we can say physics player. And then we're gonna do the same thing for the character body 2D. We're gonna say this as kinematic player. Okay. What we can do now is we can just delete those 2. And if we want to add however many instances of the player, we can just go over to the top left, hit that link button, that's instantiating a new scene. And we can select any sort of physics player or kinematic player. I just realized I named that wrong, bit of a typo, but let's say I wanted 5 or however many of those I want. Now I can instance them, and if you click play, then they're all going to be following my mouse, all as their own instance of the same scene code. All right. That is really useful. You can also do this through code if you want to instance, say, a few scenes. So I'll show you really quickly how to do that. We don't have a script for our world, so let's go over here. It's really annoying that it defaults to scenes, but we're going to go to scripts, and then I think we just, leave it as world.gd, that's fine. Okay, so to instance a scene, similar to what we did before about changing scenes, we want to have a node reference to the scene. In this case, I think physics play is a good target because we can add multiple of those. I am just going to quickly rename that. Okay, so we're going to hold control and drag it over. It's going to create a constant. Now in ready, we're going to add all of our scenes in through code, but you don't have to do this in ready. You can do this in whatever function you want and then just call it on a whim based on what event occurs. So on ready, we're going to, let's say we're spawning 10 of these. So for I in range, and then we'll just do 10. So it counts from 0 to 9. We're going to spawn a physics player. To do this, we'll create a variable called instance. And the type of instance is going to be our physics player. The physics player is a rigid body 2D. If you guys are following along and you wanted to change your name of the physics player script to say maybe physics player, what I was talking about, you can go over here and physics player and just hit save. So now instead of the type of this being a rigid body 2D, it's going to be physics player. I don't mind if you do this, you don't have to. Later on, when you get more and more complicated code, would suggest doing this a lot, just so you can access the methods in the physics player script, but we don't have any. An instance is going to equal, it's going to equal physics player, the constant, dot instantiate. So dot instantiate creates a new version of the scene. To actually add it to the scene, we have to call we have to call add child. So add child creates whatever the parameter is. It adds that to the child. So it's going to be a direct child of it. And we'll add child and we'll add it as the instance. The reason why I've stored the instance as a variable is because a lot of times you want to do something before you spawn something in. If you're spawning bullets, then you'd want to set the position of it before it actually gets displayed. So we can go instance.position. If you had a gun position that you'd want to spawn it from, then you would set it to whatever position of the gun is. For now, I'm going to set it to a random position. So I can go rand I range. Now the position is a vector too, so it can't just accept just one integer. So I'm going to wrap this in a vector 2, and the x coordinate is going to be a random integer from from maybe 0 to 1080, which is the size of our screen. Same thing on the y-axis, we'll do 1080, that's fine. All right, now when we click play, what it's going to do is add in, or it's going to bring us to the main menu first, and then it's going to add in 10 of our instances at random positions. That's how you instance nodes from a scene. So the general rule for making scenes is try and have your scene do one specific thing. That is all with the control, the nodes, instantiation. If you have any questions or concerns about what I was talking about, or if I did it too fast, definitely let me know. But if you don't have anything else, that should be all for today.